governance. Are data LOCALIZATION requirements necessary in proportion? 8. Context. The value and importance of data in today's technologically driven society underline the demand for data localization. Data localization. Data localization refers to policy initiatives that limit data flows by restricting the physical storage and processing of data inside the boundaries of a specific jurisdiction. The need for data localization strengthens the protection of personal data. For instance, the European Union's General Data Protection Regulation (GDPR) obligates businesses in the EU to keep their data secured within the boundaries of the EU. Protect the privacy of citizens. Exercise control of the data for law enforcement purposes. Drive their economy. Case of India. Data localization is critical, as India is a powerful market in data creation. The long-awaited Personal Data Protection (PDP) Bill, 2019, was recently withdrawn by the Government of India in order to be replaced by a new bill with a comprehensive framework and contemporary digital privacy laws. Fears about data localization against ease of doing business. According to the UNCTAD's Digital Economy Report, data localization increases the operational costs of the businesses, promotes monopoly by eradicating small and mid-sized businesses from the market, impacting daily consumers who would be deprived of making choices. Make data security more vulnerable, especially when data security is low. Misuse by rich countries. By employing advanced data surveillance tools, which may defeat the aim of establishing data security by relocation. Increased risk of local surveillance. Through the implementation of stringent data localization laws. Varied nature of compliances amongst different countries way ahead. A multiple stakeholder approach, it can help in looking not only at data localization but also other issues such as privacy and governance. Data encryption rather than delocalization. In this age of rapid technological growth, governments should shift to alternate standards of data encryption. Globalization approach, wherein laws can be harmonized globally, but by paying attention to local interests. Assess the security of domestic systems for storing sensitive data. Conclusion. Data as the enabler of businesses and digitization has been essential for growth and innovation. There must be a balance between the sovereignty-based model for data localization and the need for data to be independent and autonomous. Insta links. Data localization. Mains links, Q. Data localization policies, while allowing government agencies to regulate the data efficiently, hinder the growth of global trade and investments. In this context, analyze the pros and cons of data localization for India. Issues relating to children. The Protection of Children from Sexual Offences (POCSO) Act. Context. The POCSO Act brings tribals in the Nilgiris into conflict with the law, as youth under the age of 18 in 32 Insights on India. Com. Relationships within or outside marriage are subject to the Act's stringent provisions. In another case, the High Court of Karnataka recently stated that the Law Commission of India will have to rethink the age criteria in the POCSO Act for having consensual sex. About the Protection of Children from Sexual Offences (POCSO) Act, the Union Ministry of Women and Child Development led the introduction of the POCSO Act in 2012. The act was designed to protect children from sexual assault, sexual harassment, and pornography offenses, as well as to provide for the establishment of special courts for the trial of such offenses. The act was amended in 2019 for enhancing the punishments for specific offenses in order to deter abusers and ensure a dignified childhood. Salient features: a gender neutral law. The POCSO Act defines a child as any person under the age of 18. Not reporting abuse as an offense. Any person except children in charge of an institution who fails to report the commission of a sexual offense relating to a subordinate is liable to be punished. No time limit for reporting abuse. A victim can report an offense at any time, even a number of years after the abuse has been committed. Maintaining confidentiality of the victim's identity. The Act prohibits disclosure of the victim's identity in any form of media, except when permitted by the special courts established under the Act. New obligations under the POCSO Rules 2020. Any institution housing children or coming in regular contact is required to conduct a periodic police verification and background check of every employee. Such an institution must impart regular training to sensitize its employees on child safety and protection. The institution has to adopt a child protection policy based on the principle of zero tolerance for violence against children. POCSO Act's performance in comparison to global standards. A 2019 Economist Intelligence Unit report ranked India's legal system for safeguarding children from sexual abuse and exploitation as the best of the countries surveyed. On this metric, India outranked the United Kingdom, Sweden, and Australia. Concerns. Despite the existence of such comprehensive child sexual abuse law, the scale of such abuse is staggering. According to a recent survey, 1 in every 2 children is a victim of sexual abuse in India. In the vast majority of cases, the perpetrators are known to the victim, causing the victim to be hesitant to approach authorities for redress. Incidents of child abuse have also risen exponentially since the COVID-19 pandemic, with the emergence of new forms of cybercrime. The general level of awareness or knowledge on the part of minor girls and boys of the POCSO Act remains severely inadequate in the country. Child marriage is common among certain tribal groups in the country, resulting in the criminalization of 17 to 18 years old youths due to a lack of knowledge of the POCSO Act. Way ahead recently, the Karnataka HC has directed the State Education Department to set up a mechanism for educating students, at least from Class IX onwards, about the Act and its provisions. Interlinks, expanding the scope of the POCSO Act. Mains links, Q. To put an end to child sexual abuse, the scope of the POCSO Act must be enhanced, not narrowed. Critically comment in the light of recent judicial rulings on POCSO. Issues relating to education, where no child is left behind. Context. As the National Education Policy (NEP) 2020 emphasizes the need for a national mission on foundational literacy and numeracy (FLN) to achieve universal FLN in all primary schools, it is necessary to explore how we can accomplish this ambitious goal. Foundational literacy and numeracy (FLN). FLN is the ability of children by the time they enter class 3 to read with meaning and perform basic math calculations, which children by the time they enter class 3 to read with meaning and perform basic math calculations, which serves as the foundation for all future learning. Ah. Insights on India. Com 33. Global national local efforts towards FLN over the years. Global national local. GOMTIAN Conference 1990 World Declaration on ADUCATION for all. Unni Krishnan V. State of Andhra Pradesh, 1993. The SC ruled that the right to education for children up to age 14 is central and fundamental. The District Primary Education Program, 1994, to universalize and transform the quality of primary education. Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, 2001, aimed at the universalization of elementary education. The Shiksha Karmi Project, 1987, to tackle teacher absenteeism in remote villages in Rajasthan. The Bihar Education Project, the 1990, to give a fillip to the universalization of primary education. The Lok Jambish or People's Movement for Education for All, 1992, in Rajasthan. Concerns. Poor education indicators. India ranks 132 out of 191 countries in the 2021 Human Development Index, which measures a country's health, average income and education. According to an NCERT survey, 11% of Indian children in class 3 do not have fundamental math skills when compared to the worldwide benchmark competency level. Poor governance, absence of a systematic way of recruiting good teachers and establishing teacher development institutions. Government's recent initiatives. The National Education Policy 2020, it proposes a three-language formula, two of which are indigenous to India, and states that the medium of instruction should be in the mother tongue until at least class V. The Nipun Bharat, the Union Ministry of Education launched the National Initiative for Proficiency in Reading with Understanding and Numeracy (NIPUN) in 2021 to enable all children at the end of class 3 to achieve foundational skills by the year 2026-2027. Way ahead, direct funds to schools, fewer non-teaching tasks, and a vibrant community and panchayat connection and parental involvement for accountability. The recruitment of teachers, educators and administrators has to become a priority if a difference needs to be created. For this, the central, state and local governments need to transform governance to ensure that everyone delivers their best. Best practices. Sampark Foundation, a civil society initiative. The foundation uses technology, audio battery operated sound boxes and innovative teaching learning materials, and has also launched a TV for teacher development. Pratham's Read India campaign and the Azim Premji Foundation are working to improve government schools by providing district, block level support to schools and teachers. Conclusion. The time between preschool and class 3 can be transformative for individuals, and FLN is required to prepare a generation of learners who will secure high rates of economic success and human well-being for India. Insta links. Primary education in India means links, Q. To achieve the objective of foundational literacy and numeracy in all primary schools, we need to especially focus on community connections and parental involvement. Analyze. Welfare schemes for vulnerable sections. GOVT. Forms panel to look into MGNREGA's efficacy. Direction. There have been demands from several quarters in India to scrap the MGNREGA. The article emphasizes that, while the scheme has flaws, it is not useless. This is why the government has established a committee to reform the scheme. Background. The Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act (MGNREGA) was enacted in 2005, and the demand-driven scheme promises 100 days of unskilled work to every rural household that wishes to participate. It was launched as a poverty alleviation instrument for the rural region, providing them with a safety net in the form of guaranteed work and wages. The scheme now has 15.51 crore active workers enrolled. However, it was felt that states like up in Bihar, where there is a higher level of poverty, haven't 34 or insights on India. Com. Been able to utilize the scheme optimally. The scheme has also been criticized by economists like Jagdish Bhagwati and Arvind Panagaria as an unfair efficient instrument of shifting income to the poor. About the committee. The Sinha Committee, named after former Rural Development Secretary Amarjeet Sinha, has now been tasked to study the various factors behind the demand for MGNREGA work, the expenditure trends and interstate variations, and the composition of work. It will suggest within 3 months what changes in focus and governance structures are required to make MGNREGA more effective. Criticism of the scheme. Lack of tangible asset creation. Bihar, for example, despite its levels of poverty, does not generate assets to make a concrete difference, while Kerala, which is economically better, has been utilizing it for asset creation. Allocation of funds is not as per the needs of the states. From the above example, while Bihar needs MGNREGA more, Kerala cannot be denied funds because of the current structure of the program. Conclusion. Regardless of all the criticism, MGNREGA acted as a crucial safety net during the COVID pandemic. Thus, the scheme needs to be reformed to provide not only social safety net for the vulnerable but also economic tangible asset creation benefits. Insta links, MGNREGA. Mains links, Q. Discuss the key features and significance of MGNREGA. What are the recent concerns regarding the implementation of the scheme? 15M. Issues relating to poverty and hunger. There has been a persistent decline in poverty in India. Context. The recent release of National Family Health Survey (NFHS) data for 2019 to 21 allows a detailed examination of progress in reducing absolute poverty and related variables such as nutrition. Background. The NFHS survey is an attempt to provide estimates of a multidimensional poverty index (MPI). Its calculation is based on poverty estimations based on 10 different parameters. The deprivation index for each indication is the percentage of people who are deprived as per that indicator. What does the above data show? The pace of decline in poverty accelerated post 2014. For example, the MPI declined at a compounded annual average rate of 4.8% in 2005 to 11 and more than double that pace at 10.3% a year during 2011 to 21. Government initiatives taken during 2011 to 21. A major factor behind the inclusive nature of growth is the focus of government policies on each of the individual indicators. Under the Swachh Bharat mission, Over 110 million toilets were constructed. Saubhagya Yojana managed to electrify every village and household. Jan Dhan Yojana made financial inclusion a reality in India, especially for women. Ujjwala Yojana nearly halved from 26 to 14% deprivation in just 5 years. Awas Yojana, less than 14% are now deprived. Jal Jeevan Mission, an ambitious project of ensuring universal access to piped water. Rural piped water coverage increased to 54% from all. Insights on India. Com 35. 17% in 2019, and is expected to meet the 100% target by 2024. Issues with the above data. The aggregation of the 10 indicators into one index involves legitimate issues of weighing. The Global Hunger Index (GHI) shows a worsening of hunger in India between 2014 to 21, contradicting the considerable improvement recorded in the NFHS data. Way ahead. A proactive use of fiscal policy combined with effective targeting will ensure that the benefits of growth are more equitably distributed across a wider class of citizens. A rights-based approach rather than an entitlements-based approach will help the government in delivering a dignified standard of living to all. The National Family Health Survey, NFHS, it is a multi-round, large-scale survey done in a representative sample of households across India to collect reliable and up-to-date information on fertility, family planning, mortality and maternal and child health. Ministry of Health and Family Welfare designated the International Institute for Population Sciences (IIPAS) as the nodal organization in charge of providing coordination and technical guidance for the NFHS. NFHS was funded by the United States Agency for International Development (USAID) and the United Nations Children's Fund (UNICEF). Fifth Survey NFHS 5. The NFHS 5 National Report, which began in 2019, documents the transition from NFHS 4 2015-16 to NFHS 5 2019-21. Insta links. Poverty and unemployment. Mains links. Q. Why does poverty continue to remain a massive challenge in India? Examine the various measures taken by the government to achieve Sustainable Development Goal 1. 15M. Bilateral, regional and global groupings and agreements. Economic CORRI. Though the bumpy road traveled so far. Context. In reference to the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor (CPEC), India's External Affairs Minister recently reiterated that connectivity projects should respect sovereignty and territorial integrity. About the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor (CPEC). CPEC is a sea and land-based corridor started in 2013, with a collection of infrastructure projects, hydroelectric nuclear projects, railways, highways, economic corridors that are under construction throughout Pakistan. It is intended to link Kashgar in China's Xinjiang province to Gwadar deep sea port close to Pakistan's border with Iran. Significance of the project. For Pakistan, it intends to build modern transportation networks, various energy projects and SEZs in order to rapidly modernize Pakistan's essential infrastructure and strengthen its economy. For China, energy security. It is aimed to secure passage for China's energy imports from the Middle Eastern countries. Gwadar lies close to Strait of Hormuz by avoiding existing routes from the Straits of Malacca. Strengthening trade ties with Europe. By developing Gwadar port in the Arabian Sea, as well as connecting this port to Xinjiang province, national security and economic development of the Xinjiang region, thus reducing militant influence on Muslim separatists. Geopolitical aspirations. The CPEC is part of China's larger regional transnational Belt and Road Initiative (BRIC), formerly known as One Belt One Road (OBOR) initiative. Land-based New Silk Road in the 21st century Maritime Silk Road. Concerns for India. Impinges on India's sovereignty and territorial integrity. CPEC passes through the dispute 36 Insights on India. Com. An area of POC, thus threatening the sovereignty of India. Participation of other countries. Decision to extend CPEC to Afghanistan. Chinese dominance. A dominant China in neighborhood and world would go against India in gaining a permanent chain in UNSC and other matters of international concern. Dilemma to participate or not, given the hype surrounding the benefits that the CPEC will bring to the region. Several experts argue that India must engage with China and Pakistan creatively. Way ahead. At this moment, India must develop a holistic outlook based on a serious reassessment of the possible benefits and drawbacks of the CPEC project. India could expedite work on its own strategic projects, such as the BCIM, Bangladesh, China, India, and Myanmar Economic Corridor, Chabahar Port, and the Asia-Africa Growth Corridor. SCORE. It is an 8-member multilateral political economic security organization, established in 2001 in Shanghai, China by the leaders of China, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Russia, Tajikistan and Uzbekistan. In 2017, at the historic summit in Astana, India and Pakistan officially joined SCORE as full members. Insta links. Prelims link. 1. What is Shanghai 5? Though. When was SCORE Charter signed and when it entered into force? 3. SCORE founding members. 4. When did India join the group? 5. Observers and dialogue partners of SCORE. Chair. Permanent bodies under SCORE. 7. Official languages of SCORE. Mains link. Q. Discuss the objectives and significance of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Thus M. India's counter-terror diplomacy and challenges ahead. Context. The decision to host the United Nations Security Council's Counterterrorism Committee, UNSCCTC, is one of several events planned by the Government of India to strengthen its counter-terror diplomacy. How India is strengthening its counter-terror diplomacy. Last month, October, the special meeting of the UNSCCTC was hosted by India in Mumbai and Delhi, focusing on new and emerging technologies. Later this month, November, New Delhi will host the third edition of the No Money for Terror (NMFT) conference for tackling future modes of terror financing. Next month, December, India will chair a special briefing on the global counterterrorism architecture, looking at the challenges ahead. Challenges ahead for India. The foundation of the Global War on Terrorism (GWOT) is an unequal approach. For example, counterterrorism efforts post 9/11 attack differs from its recent approach to negotiate with the Taliban and then withdrew from Afghanistan. Pakistan was recently removed from the Financial Action Task Force (FATF) grey list. This shows that counterterrorism cooperation will become less cooperative in the future and counterterrorism regimes such as UNSC Resolutions 1267 and 1373 will become ineffective. Increasing global division over the Russia-Ukraine conflict, it is not only shifting the focus from terrorism but is also blurring the definition of what constitutes terrorism. For example, drone attacks by Yemeni Houthis on the UAE's oil infrastructure were condemned as terrorist attacks, while drone attacks on Russian ships in a port used for loading grain were not. This division has rendered the UNSC unable to pass any meaningful resolutions as they are vetoed either by Russia, Western members, or China. Or Insights on India. Com 37. For example, India's proposal for the Comprehensive Convention on International Terrorism (CCIT) has made very little progress due to a lack of consensus over the definition of terrorism. Emerging technologies used for terrorism purposes. Drones, biowarfare and gain-of-function research to mutate viruses and vectors, artificial intelligence AI systems and robotic soldiers makes it easier to perpetrate mass attacks while maintaining anonymity. Terror financing uses bitcoins and cryptocurrency, and terror communications use the dark web. Way ahead, terrorist acts of the future will grow more and more lethal. Thus, developing a global consensus on what constitutes terrorism, regulating the use of emergent technologies by all responsible states is the need of the hour. Reducing global inequality, food and energy shortages, and adverse impacts of climate change and pandemics needs to be on the top of the agenda of the international community. Conclusion. As the host of these counterterrorism meetings, India must set the global narrative of not only fighting the last war on terrorism but also preparing for the next. Links. Terrorism measures institutional and legal framework. Loss and damage funding officially included in the COP27 agenda. Context. At the 27th Conference of Parties COP27 to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change UNFCCC in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt, countries have agreed to discuss providing financial support to address loss and damage caused by climate change. Background. Human-induced climate change has already warmed the Earth by 1.1 degrees Celsius, and millions of people are now feeling the effects of rising temperatures and extreme weather events. This means that certain climate change losses and damages are unavoidable. The decision to discuss loss and damage at COP27 follows recent climate disasters in Europe, worst drought in 500 years, Pakistan, worst ever flooding, and heat waves in many regions of the world. About loss and damage, it is used in UN climate negotiations to express the effects of climate change that outweigh people's ability to adapt. It is disproportionately affecting vulnerable communities, making addressing the issue a matter of climate justice. While the UNFCCC has not defined loss and damage precisely, it is caused by extreme weather events, cyclones, droughts, heatwaves, and slow onset changes, sea level rise, desertification, ocean acidification. Climate change damages can be classified as economic losses or non-economic losses, such as loss of life. Evolution of the concept. The appropriate response to loss and damage has been debated since the early 1990s when the UNFCCC was founded. Establishing accountability and compensation for loss and destruction has long been an aim for the most vulnerable, least developed countries group. However, historically blamed for the climate catastrophe, rich countries have overlooked the concerns of vulnerable countries. Warsaw International Mechanism (WIM) on loss and damages was founded in 2013 with no funding mechanism. However, during the 2021 COP26 Climate Summit in Glasgow, a three-year task force was established to consider a funding arrangement for loss and damage. Significance of including loss and damage in the main agenda of COP27. This will have the effect of mainstreaming the issue, requiring more frequent talks and progress. This has reignited the fight for justice on behalf of communities that have lost their livelihood. Challenges, inclusion on the formal agenda is just the beginning, and the actual provision for climate disaster compensation is still a long way away. 38 or Insights on India. Com. Getting the rich and developed nations to contribute money has been a challenging battle. Also, calculating loss due to climate change is difficult. Way ahead, the COP27 must agree to create a loss and damage finance facility to help people and nations recover from the effects of climate change. India-backed Mission Life, a global mass effort to re-establish the delicate balance between man and nature, must be the primary strategy for combating climate change. Insta links. We need a forest-led COP27. As India takes GB's presidency, key takeaways from the summit in Bali. Direction. The article covers a brief about the G20 grouping, key takeaways from the Bali summit, and the significance of the G20 presidency for India. Context. The first post-pandemic meeting of the grouping, the G20 summit in Bali, Indonesia, recently took place in the shadow of the Russia-Ukraine crisis and a missile attack on Poland. Key 5 takeaways from the Bali summit. The joint statement includes India's message to Russia. Today's era must not be of war. India got the presidency of the G20. This is the first time the country will be holding an international summit of this scale. Indian Prime Minister stated that India's presidency will be inclusive, ambitious, decisive and action-oriented, as represented by India's G20 chairmanship theme, One Earth, One Family, One Future. Meeting of the world's two most powerful economies, US and China, at a time when the ties between their countries have been strained. Their meeting is seen as an incremental step towards rebuilding the fractured relationship. The divide between Russia and the West is evident, especially after news of the Russian-built missile landing in Poland, a NATO member country. Meeting of Indian PM and Chinese President. This was their first public meeting since the India-China border standoff began in 2020. Significance of G20 presidency for India. An opportunity to assume leadership of the global south. Building a global consensus on reforming multilateral organizations such as the UN was the first step toward a new world order for the post-COVID era. The growing relevance of the G20 in a world facing challenges like climate change, the COVID-19 pandemic and the war in Ukraine. About the G20 or Group of 20. It is an intergovernmental forum made up of 19 countries as well as the European Union (EU) that aims to address significant global economic challenges such as international financial stability, climate change mitigation and sustainable development. The G20, which is made up of the majority of the world's top economies, both developed and developing, was created in 1999 and has met at least once a year since 2008. Because the group has no permanent staff secretariat, each year in December, a G20 country from a rotating region assumes the presidency, which is in charge of organizing the following summit. Insta-links. Great G20 power. Great responsibility. Mains links. Q. The long sustained image of India as a leader of the oppressed and marginalized nations has disappeared on account of its newfound role in the emerging global order. Elaborate UPSC 2019. Prelims links. Consider the following statements about G20 or Group of 21. The G20 was created on France's initiative during the crisis following the Asian financial crisis in 1997-1998. Though it has no permanent staff of its own. Theme. A G20 country from a rotating region takes on the presidency. Which of the given above statements are correct? A. 1 and 2 only. B. 2 only. C. 1 and 3. D. 2 and 3 uns. D. Refer. https://g20. Or. Insights on India. Com 39. Economic Cooperation and Trade Agreement ECTA approved. Direction. The agreement is significant since it is first such agreement for India with a developed country in the past 10 years. Context. Australian Parliament ratified India-Australia Economic Cooperation and Trade Agreement ECTA in a landmark moment for India. Why the deal is a landmark? It is first such agreement for India with a developed country. India has free trade deals mostly with South Asian countries and hardly served India's trade interests. Shows India's negotiating skills. The deal has the potential to raise bilateral trade between India and Australia to nearly $50 billion in the next 5 years and create at least 10 lakh jobs in the startup economy. Provide a model for future FTA with other developed countries. Key features of the deal. Duty-free access to the Australian market for over 6,000 broad sectors, e.g., labor-intensive exports in textiles, leather, furniture, jewelry etc. Dairy and agriculture excluded. Reduce the import prices for a number of commodities for India. Duty-free import of Indian wines and Australian coal at competitive rates. Includes service sector important for India label such as health, ITES etc. Covers India's concerns on rules of origin crew, sanitary and phytosanitary, SPS measures, movement of persons at sea. OEG. The melt and pour provision for the steel industry. It only allows steel that is produced locally in Australia can be imported into India. Movement of trained professional. The deal provides for an annual quota of 1,800 for yoga teachers and Indian chefs and a commitment to over 1 lakh of India's outgoing students to Australia for post-study work visas. Resolves DTAA. The trade deal also resolves the long pending double taxation avoidance agreement DTAA related to it.